Rikers Island. Coming on left on us sing this. Rikers Island. Oh, mama. Oh, papa. You should have seen your little song.
Hello everybody, welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. The first time you come to New York, they tell them youth, you mustn't skylark, learn a trade or go to school, and don't you turn yourself in a fool. If any single song could be the perfect description of an artist's essence, it's indeed Rikers Island. The track is slick, the melody is catchy, the vocals are dripping with sweetness, and the lyrics carry a heavy message. A perfect way to sum up the little maestro from Rocky Point, Clarendon. Undeniably, that song, Rikers Island, is Cocoa T's signature tune and generally the best loved song by his fans. It wasn't just a smash #1 hit and dance floor filler, but one that gave a cautionary warning to Jamaican youth arriving in New York, admonishing them to stay on the straight and narrow path and avoid the temptations to get sucked into the street life, an outcome that Cocoa T made clear would lead them to the much dreaded Rikers Island prison. But while the song's universal messaging to the youth is not in doubt, not many people know that the song was inspired by what Cocoa T saw when he moved to the Big Apple and the experiences of his ex-boss and mentor in the iconic Henry Junjo laws, the producer who is credited with being the architect of the golden age of dancehall and celebrated for introducing the world to the likes of Yellow Man, Ika Mouse, and Barrington Levy. Let's take a look at the song Rikers Island, Cocoa T's cryptic warning about the ordeal of Henry Junjo laws. Now this tale begins with Jamaica at the beginning of the 1980s. After a turbulent 1970s that was rife with political turmoil, the island would see its worst ever violence during elections in 1980. Coupled with economic problems, the chaos would spark an unprecedented rise in emigration. Caribbean people, and indeed Jamaicans, had been emigrating to places like the US, Canada, and the UK since the 1950s. But the 1980s would see over 200,000 Jamaicans move to the US alone, and one of them was none other than Junjo Laws. He was by then among Jamaica's most successful producers. But Junjo had a history. In his youth, he had been a political enforcer in what were Jamaica's darkest days of violence. But thanks to the intervention of producers Bonnie Lee and Linval Thompson, they had drawn him out of the gang life and taken him into a life in show business. So now in the US, Junjo would settle in New York City, and in particular the Bronx, an area which had a vibrant Caribbean community that included lots of artists, also from Jamaica. The Jamaican community in the city also boasted of the likes of Nicodemus, Nitty Gritty, and Supercat, plus producers like Philip Smart, as well as record companies like VP Records, which was owned by Vincent and Pat Chin. And over time, they would make New York the reggae and dancehall capital of America. As said earlier, Junjo Laws left Jamaica at the absolute top of his game. In addition to the roster of artists that was signed to his label when he left in 1985, it was one of his newest acts named Calvin Scott, aka Cocoa T, a sweet voiced crooner that moved to Kingston from a fishing village called Rocky Point in the parish of Clarendon. Junjo took him on in 1984, and the singer almost instantly scored a major hit with his first single, Rocking Dolly, and would follow that up with other smashing successes like I Lost My Sonia, Can't Stop Cocoa T, and Informer. But shortly after releasing his debut album titled Mr. Cocoa T in 1985, Junjo moved to the US, and Cocoa T would move over and pitch his tent with producer King Jammy, a relationship that would take his career to the next level with hit after hit, including his 1987 banger Come Again. And by the end of the 1980s, he was officially an internationally acclaimed act, and the heavy demand for his music in the US saw him move over to stay for a long time. And like many of his peers, he would settle in New York, and during his stay, he would play countless concerts and record singles for various producers. But when he got to New York, he would learn that his former boss Junjo was 3 years into a 7-year jail sentence that he was serving at the awfully dreadful Rikers Island prison. Apparently, soon after arriving in the US, Junjo had reconnected with some old pals from his days as a political enforcer back in Jamaica. And those old friends, who were now in New York, had since formed a drug cartel called the Jamaican Shower Posse. It's not very clear how, but his dealings with that group got him into hot water with the authorities. and he was found guilty and sent to prison soon after entering the US. Cocoa would also observe the presence of other Jamaican drug gangs in New York, like the Spanglers and the Coke Cowboys, and was horrified at the shocking rate at which youth from Backyard were throwing away their lives, either by being sent to jail or getting shot in the streets in gang wars. He was inspired to do a song that would express his deepest feelings about everything he was seeing. So one fine day in 1990, he was hanging out at a studio owned by Jamaican producer Philip Smart over in Long Island when he heard an instrumental that blew his mind and inspired him to put that song together, and he would write it in a matter of minutes. He entered the recording booth and did a rough version over the beat, and everyone in the studio went crazy. It was released as a single under a Brooklyn-based label called Mr. Do and rocketed up to number 1 in the US reggae charts in record time. It also went to number 1 in Jamaica's charts and charted in several countries. That song became a phenomenon worldwide, and the next year he would sing it during a performance at the popular Apollo Theater in Harlem, a venue that is known for having one of the most difficult audiences on the planet. In that show, he performed alongside the likes of Shabba Ranks and totally mashed up the place when he sang Rikers Island, and had to sing it up to 4 times just to satisfy that audience. And that song till date is his most requested track when he performs live, and Cocoa shows are never complete till the audience has heard Rikers Island. As for Junjo, he was released from prison in 1991 and was deported to Jamaica immediately. He tried to revive his career, but by then, the sound has changed as dancehall had moved into the Reggae or digital era. He would move to the UK and settled in London by the mid-1990s. But unfortunately, he would be gunned down in a drive-by shooting in June 1999 at the age of 39. It's popularly believed that the slaying was the fallout of a gang war between rival drug cartels in London, even though that case was never solved. So there you have it. Thank you for watching this video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, Jah bless.